My shop isn't the kind you stumble into. You won't find it sandwiched between the Starbucks and the antique bookstore on Main Street. It's not listed on Yelp and there's no glowing neon sign. My shop exists just off the map, always has. You don't find it unless you need to. Intentionally or not, some part of you knows deep down that you've got something to get rid of. Not junk, not clutter, something haunted. Maybe you've noticed your silverware drawer sliding open on its own in the middle of the night. Maybe the footsteps you hear at 3 a.m. sound too heavy to be yours. Maybe just maybe you caught a glimpse of a sagging bloated face in the bathroom mirror. When that wasn't yours, that's when you find me. No one arrives by accident, not ever. You come here because you're desperate because something in your house is wrong and it's clinging to you like mold in the walls. And I'm always here waiting. Years ago, a man in his 40s, pot-bellied, sweating through his suit, stumbled through my glass doors, confused, mumbling, like most of them are. He clutched a wooden display frame of souvenir spoons, the kind you pick up on family vacations. Egypt, Paris, New Mexico, all tucked neatly in their slots. He didn't know it, but he brought her with him, his mother. What was left of her anyway? She stood behind him, a hunched, rotting figure with spines twisted down her back like a lizard's tail. Her eyes bulged from her face, wide and wet and watching. She didn't speak. Just stared at the spoons with a hunger that was almost maternal. Malicious old one, I thought. Matronly devils are the worst kind. Full of entitlement even in death. I asked him, what was she to you? He blinked, dazed. My mother, he said. That explained everything. I offered him a price. $1,000 flat. He paid without blinking, like he'd always known he would. It's always like that. They always know. As he left, she tried to follow, clawed hands scraping at invisible walls. But her anchor, the spoon collection, held her bound to my store. She screamed after him, shrieked how he'd left her, but he was already gone. Already forgetting this ever happened. I turned back to her, flipping a golden Egyptian spoon in my hand. She hissed. One step closer, I warned, and I dissolve your anchor in fluoroantimonic acid. She froze, spines lowered. You torment no one else, I said. You're going to the thrift store bound in blood, harmless and forgotten. Or I drop you into the black void forever. She chose servitude. They always do. The worst ones are always the dolls, the pretty porcelain ones with glass eyes and painted smiles. They carry things the way bone carries disease. You see, a woman came in once, mid-50s, chain smoker. Voice like gravel, her makeup was thick and cracked around her eyes like old paint. She walked straight up to the counter and placed a doll on it. No words, no eye contact. Just this porcelain girl in a blue dress, blonde curls and a crooked smile. I didn't ask questions, I never do, but the room shifted the moment the doll hit the wood like something ancient and angry had taken notice. It was not a residual haunt, not something that just echoes energy. This thing was intelligent, it was aware, and it was watching. I felt it press against the edges of the store like fingers dragging down wallpaper. I told her $500. She nodded, silently paid in cash, and left without a word. As soon as the door shut, the doll looked at me, not turned its head, not shifted. In its spot, just stared with both eyes now wide and knowing. I picked it up. Its body was cold, heavier than it should have been, like holding something full of wet sand and bone. I placed it in the back room behind salt lines and iron chains under red cloth and whispered rights. For hours it did not blink, but the lights did. Sometimes the whispers from the box were in English, other times not at all. She is still there, tucked behind cursed vinyl records and haunted brooch, humming when the wind hits just right, waiting for another little girl to take her home. They always wait. He came in just after sunset, tall, thin, eyes sunk deep into his skull like he hadn't slept in weeks, maybe months. His hands were wrapped in gauze, but the blood had already soaked through. He clutched a snow globe in one hand, fingers trembling, the kind you find at cheap airport gift shops. A little winter cabin, fake snow swirling around plastic trees, but this one was warm to the touch, too warm, and inside the snow didn't fall, it churned like storm clouds. Like smoke in a bottle. He said nothing, just placed it on the counter and looked at me with eyes full of guilt and terror. It had belonged to his daughter, that much was clear. But she was no longer inside that house, inside that globe. Not really, not anymore. Something else had moved and taken root in her absence. Or maybe it had always been there waiting. I tilted it gently and something growled from within, low and wet like breath through broken teeth. I asked what happened. He whispered just one word: fire. I knew then that he had made a deal, a bad one, the kind that never ends clean. I offered him a trade, not money, not this time. I told him I could contain it, lock it away in the deep shelves, but I needed something from him, a memory, something pure, a piece of joy from before she was gone. He nodded, closed his eyes, and when he opened them, a tear rolled down his cheek. I felt the warmth shift. The storm inside the globe calmed just a little. I took it to the cellar, bound it in ash and copper, left it between the cursed marionette and the mirror that eats reflections. It hasn't moved since, but sometimes on cold nights I hear wind chimes from below, and a child humming off-key. They never leave. Quietly she walked in, wearing a wedding dress soaked at the hem with something darker than water. Her eyes were glassy, like she had been staring at something for far too long and seeing nothing at all. She didn't speak, just placed a velvet ring box on my counter and stepped back, hands shaking. I opened it slowly. Inside was a wedding band, but it pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The metal was warped, blackened like it had been through fire, or worse. I looked up at her and she was crying, silent tears trailing through her makeup like rivers through ash. I asked where she got it. She said he gave it to me on our wedding day. He said it would bind us forever, and it did. She didn't need to say more. I could feel the energy radiating off it. Not love, not devotion, but obsession. Something hungry, something that had followed her from the altar, through every mirror, every phone screen, every whisper in the dark. She said she tried to throw it away once, but it always came back. Once in the toilet, once in the freezer, once inside her mouth while she slept. I told her I could sever the bond, but it would hurt. She said pain was nothing new, not since the honeymoon. I brought out the silver shears etched in symbols older than God and told her to hold the ring one last time. Her hands burned, blistered, but she didn't let go. I said the words and the ring screamed, not in sound but in pressure, like the room itself wanted to cave in. She passed out before I finished. When she woke, the ring was gone, but the scars remained. I gave her a pair of gloves, thin black satin, to hide the marks, not to protect her but to protect others. She smiled for the first time and walked out into the morning light, lighter than before. Maybe free, maybe not, but that is how most of them leave.